Welcome to Daybreak, the podcast. Pakistan recently mediated a ceasefire between United States, Iran, and Israel. And the very same day, Israel went and bombed Lebanon, making over 100 strikes within 10 minutes, killing over 300 innocent civilians. Many were women and children. Israel's ambassador to United Nations told Piers Morgan that majority of these killed were terrorists. When asked how Israel knew they were terrorists, or if he knew how many of them were terrorists, he wasn't able to respond. In any case, the United States ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, is on record saying that killing of innocent children in Gaza by Israel was justified. And just last month, Israel's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, has exposed the real intention of that country by saying that Israel wants to annex South Lebanon, and it should. Today we are stepping into one of the most complex and emotionally charged conflicts shaping global politics right now. The forever conflict between Israel and Iran, and where Canada stands in the middle of it all. This is not just a regional conflict, it's a test of international law, of moral consistency, and how countries like Canada navigate alliances while claiming to uphold human rights and the rule of law. So stay with me as I will be right back. Welcome back to Daybreak, the podcast. The latest war between Israel and Iran is not happening in isolation. It is the continuation of a long historic conflict fought through proxies, intelligence operations, cyber warfare, and increasingly direct confrontation. Israel accuses Iran of supporting groups in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza, and Iran's nuclear ambition has long been termed by Israel as an existential threat. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, had displayed that infamous picture of a bomb with a red line through it in United Nations in 2012, claiming that Iran was just weeks away from making a bomb. Israel continues to bomb Iran, Gaza, and Lebanon, and calls it self-defense. Just recently, Israel's strikes in Lebanon and Iran destroyed the key civilian infrastructure, including roads, schools, bridges, factories, and railway tracks. War crimes. In addition to Benjamin Netanyahu being on trial for bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in Israel, since 2020, on 21st of November 2024, the International Criminal Court, the ICC, issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, charging them both for war crimes and crimes against humanity, allegedly committed in Gaza between 8th of October 2023 and 20th of May 2024. These charges have been made public by the court on its website. In particular, Netanyahu and Gallant are investigated as co-perpetrators for jointly committing the following crimes: war crimes of starvation as a method of warfare, murder as a crime against humanity, persecution as a crime against humanity, other inhumane acts as crimes against humanity, and additionally, as civilian superiors, Netanyahu and Gallant are also charged with the war crime of intentionally directing attacks at a civilian population. The idea of holding leaders accountable for war crimes dates back to the Nuremberg trials, where senior Nazi officials were prosecuted for crimes against humanity. You see, the Article 89.1 of the Rome Statute mandates that signatory states comply with requests for arrest and surrender of individuals sought by the International Criminal Court. This means that any of the court's 125 member states are legally obligated to arrest and surrender Netanyahu and Gallant if they ever enter in their territory. And guess what? Canada is a member state and signatory to the Rome Statute. Canada must arrest and deliver Netanyahu to Hague if he enters Canadian territory. Prime Minister Carney, without ambiguity, highlighted the principle of rule of law in international matters. As he said, in Canada, the law applies equally to all. No foreign leader is above it. If a leader faces legal proceedings, including arrest warrants, Canadian authorities would be obliged to uphold the law, just as they would for any citizen. Mark Carney's statements about this rule of law confirm Canada's stance, and his firm response signals that Canadian legal principles stand regardless of diplomacy. That is a good place to start. On January 26, 2024, the International Court of Justice highlighted that Palestinians in Gaza have the right to be protected from acts of genocide. The International Court of Justice ordered that the State of Israel shall ensure with immediate effect that its military does not commit any acts, including killing Palestinians in Gaza. It further ordered that the State of Israel shall take all measures within its power to prevent and punish the direct and public incitement to commit genocide in relation to members of the Palestinian groups in the Gaza Strip. And this brings me to the question of how Canada needs to, or what Canada needs to do, or how Canada needs to do some serious house cleaning, as certain Canadians may be involved in war crimes and crimes against humanity. There are confirmed reports of Canadian citizens working with the Israeli Defense Forces, the same forces whose commander-in-chief is Benjamin Netanyahu, who allegedly committed those crimes using the Israeli Defense Forces. According to an article posted by the Canadian Press on CTV website on February 17th this year, the Israeli military says that more than 1,500 people with Canadian citizenship were serving in IDF. The news comes a month after the RCMP confirmed that it would be collecting reports from members of the public about possible war crimes by Hamas or the Israeli military during the Israel-Hamas war. 1,185 Canadians who also hold Israeli citizenship were serving in the Israeli Defense Forces as of March 2025. In addition to those, 56 Canadians without Israeli citizenship, individuals known as lone soldiers, were serving in the country's military as of August 24 as well. The Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act, the CAHWCA, allows Canada to prosecute any individual present in Canada for crimes listed in the Act, regardless of that individual's nationality or where the crimes were committed. The government should initiate investigation under this Act into Canadian citizens and residents who serve in the IDF, and if warranted, lay charges or refer to the international courts. Canada also needs to strictly enforce its Foreign Armies Enlistment Act of 1937. The Act states that any person who, within Canada, recruits or otherwise induces any person or body of person to enlist or to accept any commission or engagement in the armed forces of any foreign state or other armed forces operating in that state is guilty of an offense. Israel's legislature has recently passed a law that targets Palestinians, specifically by expanding the death penalty to include national security cases. There are believed to be 9,000 Palestinians prisoners in Israeli jails under trial or awaiting one, and the conviction rate of such trials is said to be 100%. Canada has to weigh these realities very carefully. But there is something even more troubling and alarming. Israel has not signed the Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, the NPT, and has never officially accepted developing or owning nuclear weapons. But according to the Federation of American Scientists, Israel has estimated between 90 to 400 nuclear warheads. and its nuclear program is uninspected, making it even more dangerous. So where does Canada stand on all this? Defending Israel's security, upholding the rule of law, accountability for leaders like Netanyahu and Gallant, monitoring human rights issues like apartheid, and these selective and discriminatory death penalties? Canada's stance must reflect its identity as a middle power, principled, pragmatic, and committed to balancing alliances with the protection of international law and human rights, fairly, equally, and for all. And remember, a criticism of Israeli government, its policies, and its actions is not anti-Semitism. As a matter of fact, anyone calling that anti-Semitism is actually committing anti-Semitism by misrepresentation. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly recently reaffirmed Canada's stance by saying that Canada stands with Israel in its right to self-defense, while urging all parties to refrain from actions that put civilians at risk. Peace in the region is only achievable through diplomacy, the protection of human rights, and respect for international law. This statement reflects Canada's traditional approach, defending allies, condemning terrorism, and promoting a rule-based order, while also acknowledging human rights concerns in Israel and the occupied territories. Ottawa's messaging confirms that criticism of specific policies does not equate to opposition to Israel's existence, and is consistent with Canada's commitment to international law. And so, we arrive at the uncomfortable crossroads. Canada calls itself a nation of laws, a country that believes in human rights, in accountability, in justice, that does not bend for power or politics. But those values are not tested when they are easy. They are tested when they are inconvenient, when they involve allies, when they carry consequences, and when silence feels safer than speaking the truth. Our relationship with Israel has long been rooted in history, in shared values, and in diplomacy, but today, that relationship is being tested by serious allegations, by international legal actions, and by a world that is watching closely, not just what Canada says, but what Canada is willing to do. And believe me, that looking away is not diplomacy, it's hypocrisy. If the rule of law means anything, it must mean something all the time, not just when it is comfortable or convenient, not just when it applies to others. Because once you begin to make exceptions, the law stops being a principle and becomes a choice. And that is a dangerous place for any democracy to stand. So this is not just about Israel. It is not just about Iran. It is not even just about one leader or one court. It is about us, about the kind of country Canada chooses to be in this world that is increasingly divided between power and principle. Because in the end, the strength of a democracy is not measured by its words, but by its willingness to live by them. This is the time for clarity. This is Daybreak time. Thank you for watching.